You know that exact feeling. Someone says something careless, dismissive, or cruel, and in a fraction of a second, your entire day is ruined. Your chest tightens, your mind races, the heat rises in your face. But what if I told you that the feeling you are experiencing right now, that suffocating grip of anger, only lasts exactly 90 seconds? 90 seconds, unless you make the active, conscious choice to keep feeding it. Here is the brutal truth that most people will spend their entire lives running from. The vast majority of your suffering is not caused by what they did to you. It is caused by your absolute refusal to let the moment end. You rehearse the insult. You replay the scene in the theater of your mind. You imagine the perfect comeback. You turn a single fleeting moment into a life sentence. And the ultimate tragedy is that you are the one holding the key to the cell. Why does one careless comment from a coworker burn in your mind for 14 hours? Why does the silence from someone you care about tear you open like a betrayal? It happens because you have unknowingly trained your mind to react blindly rather than reflect quietly. And while you are busy being offended, losing sleep, and burning your own energy, the person who triggered you has moved on. Untouched, unaware, completely at peace. The ancient Stoics recognized this trap thousands of years ago, and modern neuroscience has finally caught up to them. If you are exhausted by the endless cycle of being emotionally hijacked by things that do not deserve your peace, this video will dismantle everything you think you know about anger, offense, and absolute control. Welcome to Stoic Mindshift. If you believe your inner world deserves mastery rather than chaos, hit the subscribe button. Do it for the part of you that is finally ready to outgrow the noise. They say the first cut is the deepest, but the truth is much darker. It is the second, third, and fourth cuts, the ones we inflict upon ourselves, that actually destroy us. Let us break down the anatomy of a trigger. The first moment of anger is nothing more than a biological spark. It is a surge of cortisol and adrenaline. It is your body's ancient, primitive alarm system reacting to a perceived threat in your environment. But what you do after that chemical dump determines the entire trajectory of your reality. Most people do not just feel their anger, they nurture it. They feed it. They nurse it like a delicate wound, replaying that rude comment or that moment of disrespect on a continuous loop until it becomes a massive, overarching narrative about their worth and their place in the world. They imagine what they should. They construct elaborate fantasies where they finally put the other person in their place. In doing this, they are not just reliving the offense, they are actively re-injuring themselves. It is the equivalent of being stung by a bee, and instead of removing the stinger and walking away, you choose to sting yourself again, on purpose, in the exact same spot, for the next 6 hours. Here is what neuroscience dictates. That initial physiological surge of anger, that chemical rush that makes your hands shake, lasts roughly 90 seconds. That is it. After that minute and a half, the chemicals flush from your bloodstream. Everything that happens after second 90 is emotional addiction. It is mental rehearsal. It is the conscious choice to hold on to the burning coal. And that is exactly where your absolute power comes in. Because if holding on is a choice, then it can be unchosen. Seneca, one of the most powerful men in Rome and a master of Stoic philosophy, wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Notice his exact phrasing. He did not say the remedy was suppression. He did not tell you to swallow it, ignore it, or pretend you are numb. He said delay. Give it space. Because what breathes in that space is clarity. Reaction demands immediacy. It wants you to act right now. It wants you to yell now, to send that destructive text message now, to escalate the conflict right now. But if you give yourself even a single breath, a deliberate pause between the external flame and your internal response, you will find that most of the heat simply dies down on its own. You will finally see the crucial difference between the objective event that occurred and the subjective story you were beginning to build around it. There is a quiet, unshakable wisdom in that pause. It is a strength most people will never touch because society has convinced them that anger is the ultimate display of strength. We are taught that volume equals power, that aggression equals dominance. But those are illusions masking deep insecurities. Real strength is restraint, not out of cowardice, but out of absolute principle. The goal of the Stoic was never to feel nothing. The goal was to feel everything, but to respond like someone who owns themselves. And owning yourself starts with the hardest realization of all, understanding that your emotions are just signals on a dashboard, not orders from a commander. The problem is that we cling to our anger because it feels protective. We say, "I am still furious because what they did to me was objectively wrong." But the harsh reality is this: what they did was a momentary event. What you are still doing is a continuous decision. To understand this, we must step beyond Stoicism and look at the deep psychology of the unconscious mind. Carl Jung, the legendary psychoanalyst, famously stated, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." This is the concept of the shadow. When someone pushes your buttons, the natural response is to retaliate or shut down. You look externally for the cause of your discomfort, because that is where the trigger appears to be. But the truth is incredibly inconvenient. They did not create your button. They simply found it. That button was already there. It was installed by years of past experiences, limiting beliefs, and emotional scars that you have refused to examine. When someone says something that hits you with devastating force, it is not because their words are inherently powerful. It is because you have unknowingly given them access to a wound that never healed. That sarcastic joke or passive-aggressive jab only stings because it brushed against a bruise that already existed. Perhaps it is a bruise from being chronically dismissed in your past. Perhaps it is a bruise from a deep-seated fear of not being competent or not feeling seen. The anger you feel erupting to the surface is rarely the original emotion. Anger is almost always a bodyguard. It is a defensive cover for an emotion that feels far too raw and vulnerable to expose, like shame, fear, or a sense of inadequacy. When you explode in rage, you must ask yourself, what am I actually protecting right now? Because it is so much easier to raise your voice than it is to admit that something pierced your sense of worth. It is easier to be furious at a stranger than it is to acknowledge the pain underneath. But once you make the unconscious conscious, as Jung taught, you take back the remote control to your mind. We go through our entire lives walking around with a universal remote control to our emotions, and we hand it out to everyone we meet. We let the traffic dictate our peace. We let a boss's bad mood dictate our worth. We let a stranger's comment dictate our trajectory. But a remote control only works if the connection is active. Cut the connection, and the world can press all the buttons they want. Absolutely nothing happens. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire constantly at war, dealing with plagues, betrayals, and endless stress, wrote this in his private journal: "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own estimate of it, and it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now." This is radical ownership. It is not about self-blame. It is about total freedom. You cannot stop people from being selfish. You cannot stop the world from being chaotic, but you retain absolute sovereignty over the meaning you assign to those events. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who endured the unimaginable horrors of Nazi concentration camps, made a discovery about human nature that changes everything. He realized that even when stripped of every physical freedom, his captors could not take his internal freedom. He wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." He did not say that space would always feel comfortable. He did not say it was easy to find when your blood is boiling. But he promised that it is always there. What begins as half a second of hesitation can be trained into a full breath. Then 2 breaths. Then a pause long enough to reframe the entire situation before a single word leaves your mouth. That angry, venomous text message you were about to send suddenly feels hollow and unnecessary. That defensive remark you were preparing dies on your tongue. And without taking any physical action, you have changed the entire trajectory of your day simply by doing nothing at all. This mastery of the space between stimulus and response does not just affect you. The stakes are infinitely higher than your own personal comfort. Consider the eyes that are constantly watching you. When the pressure mounts and the world actively tests your patience, the way you respond does not merely dictate your own peace. It writes the behavioral blueprint for the next generation. Think about it deeply. A child does not learn emotional regulation from a lecture. They do not learn resilience from the words you speak when everything is perfectly calm. They learn it by watching how the strongest figure in their life handles a sudden crisis, an unexpected financial blow, or a spilled glass of water. If you fracture under pressure, if you yell, curse the world, and lose your absolute center over a minor inconvenience, you are actively passing down fragility. You are teaching those who look up to you that the correct response to adversity is chaos. But if you can stand firm in the fire, if you can access that space of stillness when the world expects you to explode, you transmit resilience. You show them what it looks like to be an immovable mountain in the middle of a storm. Every time you choose the pause over the reaction, you are not just breaking your own destructive habits. You are breaking generational chains of unexamined anger. You are deciding that the trauma, the reactivity, and the chaos stops with you. You become the anchor. But what about the people who actively try to provoke you? The ones who seek out your buttons and press them with malicious intent. Most of us spend our lives trying to avoid difficult people. The micromanaging boss, the passive-aggressive family member, the toxic friend. We see them as obstacles to our peace. But what if you executed a radical perspective shift? What if you stopped seeing them as your enemies and started seeing them as your sparring partners? In the gym, when you want to build physical strength, you do not complain about the barbell being heavy. You do not curse the iron. You understand that the heavy weight provides the exact tension required for your muscles to grow. The resistance is the point. The exact same law applies to your emotional and psychological strength. The people who annoy you the most are your greatest instructors. They are revealing to you the exact areas where your ego still clings to control. They are showing you where your inner citadel has cracks in the walls. Epictetus taught us, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. He can anger you only when you permit yourself to be disturbed by him. When someone insults you, they are handing you a gift. They are giving you an opportunity to practice your emotional immunity. The Stoics actually trained themselves to expect the worst in people, not to become bitter or cynical, but to remain completely unbothered. If you leave your house expecting to encounter rude, thoughtless, and deeply flawed people, you are never surprised when it happens. You do not take it personally. You simply say to yourself, "Ah, there it is, human nature." And you return immediately to your center. This does not mean you accept disrespect or stay in toxic environments. Boundaries are essential, but the strongest boundaries are built from a place of absolute calm, not chaotic fury. When you respond to a provocation with complete, unshakable stillness, you do not just protect your peace, you disarm the other person entirely. Aggression requires a target that pushes back. When you offer nothing but the void of the pause, their anger has nowhere to land. It reflects back onto them. You become untouchable. There is a comforting lie we tell ourselves when we are tired of trying. We look at someone who stays effortlessly composed under intense pressure, and we say, "Some people are just born calmer." We use that lie to excuse our own outbursts. We label our reactivity as a permanent personality trait. "I just have a short temper. I'm just a passionate person." But calm is not a genetic gift. Calm is a skill. It is a callus built over time. And just like any skill, it is earned through relentless, uncomfortable practice. The process of becoming emotionally immune is not glamorous. It does not look like meditating on a mountaintop. It looks like biting your tongue so hard it bleeds when every fiber of your being wants to launch a verbal assault. It looks like physically walking away from an argument because you finally realize that protecting your peace is vastly more important than proving. It means taking full, uncompromising responsibility for your inner state. You stop waiting for the world to be quieter, and you train yourself to be focused despite the noise. You start small. You take one deep breath before answering a stressful email. You consciously relax your jaw when someone cuts you off. You observe the heat rising in your chest, and instead of becoming the fire, you watch the fire burn out. You shift from identification to observation. You say to yourself, "I notice that anger is present in my body right now, but I am not the anger." The sky does not panic when a dark cloud passes through it. The sky just remains vast, still, and open, allowing the weather to do what it must do. You are the sky. Your emotions are simply the weather. You were never meant to be ruled by what angers you. You were meant to rise above it, not by brute force, but by supreme understanding. Every time you choose stillness over reaction, you reclaim a piece of your soul that the world tried to take from you. You stop being a puppet to your unhealed wounds, and you step into the role. The next time the rush of emotion hits you, remember the 90 seconds. Remember the space between the stimulus and the response. Remember that their noise does not have to become your narrative. Hold the line. Breathe into the space, and realize that the peace you have been desperately searching for in the outside world has been waiting quietly inside your own mind. Stay grounded, stay disciplined, stay stoic.